We're starting our note today by reviewing some things that we talked about before the break on naming triangles. First of all, we talked about the fact that vertices are labeled with uppercase letters or capital letters. So you'll notice in my example here that I have my vertices, the corners of the triangles, labeled with D, capital E, and capital F. The sides are labeled with the lowercase letter of the vertex or the corner across from that side. So for example, I have my letter D at the top for an angle. The side across from it is the side that's not attached to it. So this side over here would be lowercase letter D. The angle in the bottom left corner is angle E. The side across from it, the one that's not attached to it, would be lowercase letter e. And likewise, the bottom right corner we have an F, and the side across from it would be lowercase letter f. So those are things we talked about before the break. So make sure you copy this down in your notes. Put the video on pause for now so everybody gets a chance to get that down. Okay, hopefully you have gotten that down on your notes, and then we're going to talk about the next bullets that I have, but I have them on the next slide here. So one other thing that we've talked about, we're going to be focusing on right-angled triangles, and we know that right-angled triangles have a hypotenuse, and we talked about using Pythagorean theorem. It only works with right-angled triangles, and we talked about how to identify that hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is always the side across from the 90-degree angle. So in my diagrams down here, the long side, the one across from the 90-degree angle, is called the hypotenuse. So I'm just going to write that in here without hopefully making a mistake, hypotenuse. And likewise, I've got the same diagram over here. That automatically makes side EF in this diagram as well, the hypotenuse. Now the new part, something we didn't talk about before the break, is that when we are working with right-angled triangles, we'll be using one of the angles that's not the 90-degree angle as our angle of reference. So the side across from that angle is referred to as the opposite side, and the other side is called the adjacent side. Okay, so it's this angle, when we're working with right-angled triangles, we will be using one of the angles that is not the 90-degree angle. And I meant to put in here that that angle is called the angle of reference. So this angle is called the angle of reference. So I'm just jotting that in here. Hopefully you can read that. This angle is called the angle of reference. Now, when we decide what angle is our angle of reference, the side across from that angle is called the opposite side, and the other side, the remaining side, will be the adjacent side. And this is all true if we're working with right-angled triangles. So this is true for right-angled triangles here. So in my diagram, in my example, if angle E is my angle of reference, so let me mark this as my angle of reference. This is the angle I'm going to refer to. The side across from it would be lowercase letter e, and it is what we would call the side opposite to our angle of reference. So this is opposite here. That makes my remaining side, lowercase letter f, and it's called the adjacent side. It's the one that's next to angle E or beside angle E, but it's not the hypotenuse side. Adjacent. And when I label these, I usually just use the first three letters as a short form. So I would potentially use ADJ for adjacent, I would use OPP for opposite, and I would use HYP for hypotenuse, just because it takes a lot of time to write out the whole word. All right, for the other part over here, it says if angle F is my angle of reference, so let's say I'm using angle F instead as my angle of reference, the side across from it would be my side that's called opposite. So in this diagram, side F is the opposite, and that makes the side E my adjacent side, because it's adjacent my angle of reference, which I'm using as angle F. hopefully that makes sense for you, and now you have a little exercise to work on, a handout to work on. Make sure you get this copied down in your notes.